When I teach the 8th graders about the sacraments, I try to review a couple very key points with 4 specific questions. Question number 1. What is unique about Christianity? The answer is Jesus Christ. Now, this answer may seem painfully obvious, but you would be amazed at the variety of answers that I hear to this question from kids and adults. Love of neighbor, God is love, Western philosophy, European culture, all of which have something to say about Christianity. But those things can also be found in plenty of other places, from governments to nations to other religions. The only thing that is absolutely unique to Christianity is our faith in Jesus Christ. So, second question. What is unique about Jesus? The answer to that question is the resurrection. This one, again, has a variety of answers. I hear people talk about love of neighbor, focus on the poor, prophetic messages of love, radical dedication to solidarity, all of which are true, but again, not exclusive to Jesus. You can find those in other prophets and preachers. It is the resurrection and the resurrection alone that is unique to Jesus. He is the only person in the history of the world to rise from the dead of his own power. Third question. Why is the resurrection important? The answer here is because it shows that Jesus has power over death. Death is the omnipresent boogeyman that we all have to face. Some philosophers have even said that every human action is determined in response to the specter of death. It is the burden of our rationality that we could know that we will die. And so the fact that a human man, managed to defeat death, which is the great and ultimate enemy of humanity, this fact would make it the most important fact in the entire history of the world. In addition, the theological worldview inherited from the Jews tells us that death is actually just the most potent symptom of the corruption of the world that comes from sin. So a man who conquers death is also a man who can conquer sin. The resurrection proves that Jesus has power over sin and death. He has won the victory over both. Which leaves us with the fourth question. Why does any of this matter? If Jesus rose from the dead, and that event occurred 2,000 years ago, and it stayed 2,000 years ago, it would simply be a historical curiosity. The most important historical curiosity in the history of the world, but just a curiosity. It has to have some effect on our lives. Which means that the answer to the question of why does any of this matter is baptism. In and through baptism, we are joined to Jesus' death and his resurrection. Which means we are joined to his victory over death and sin. His victory becomes our victory. His power becomes our power. So, what is unique about Christianity? Christianity is the only religion in the world that allows us to conquer sin and death by supernaturally uniting ourselves in baptism to the only person in the history of the world who has ever resurrected from the dead. Let's connect that to today's gospel. Theologian Martin Kaler once referred to the Gospels as passion narratives with extended introductions. His way of saying that the true focus of all 4 Gospels was the death and resurrection of Jesus, and that the rest of the Gospels merely point to and explain this death and resurrection. Given the 4 questions we just went through, you can see why he would come to that conclusion, since the resurrection of Jesus is what is unique to him. In light of this, why then would St. Mark include these two stories in today's gospel? How do they point to Jesus' victory over sin and death? In both of these stories, both of the synagogue official's daughter and the woman with the hemorrhage, Jesus is inviting people of faith into his victory over corruption and death. The woman with the hemorrhage shares in the Lord's power over corruption just by seeking him out and touching him. Her faith has saved her because her faith brought her to Jesus and united her to him. And the little girl shares in the Lord's power over death through the faith of her father. An interesting analogy to the fact that most of us today are brought to the saving waters of baptism through the faith of our parents. This is what Jesus does. Jesus wins the victory and then invites us to share this victory with him. Jesus conquers the corruptions of the world, not for himself, but for all who believe in him. These stories of temporary physical healing point to the much greater healing of the world from the corruptions of sin and death for all eternity. Now, the woman with the hemorrhage and the daughter of the synagogue official are good and helpful stories that point to Jesus' victory. But I want to tell you another story. We have recently had two very faithful parishioners, Donna Ricci and now Nina O'Connell, women in their 50s, so relatively young, die after long battles with cancer. Donna a few months ago and Nina this week. On the surface, it seems that the Lord did not save either of them from corruption or death, despite their baptism. They suffered. Their bodies wasted away until they finally gave up the fight and went to their reward. They were not healed or raised up. And yet, I had the opportunity to visit with both of these women shortly before they died, when their suffering was immense, but their minds were still sharp. And I have to tell you that the power of Jesus was never more obvious to me than when I looked in their eyes. Both of them had an incredible serenity in the face of suffering and death. Both of them did not look to the end with fear, but with hope and even anticipation. Both of them worried far more about those they were leaving behind than about themselves. They knew Jesus loved them. They knew Jesus had saved them. And they knew Jesus would receive them. My friends, I have to tell you, the deaths of Donna and Nina are paradoxically some of the most powerful proofs I have ever seen that Jesus came to bring life. These two women never let death control them or have power over them, because Christ had already conquered death in them. It was incredible to behold, and I was blessed as a priest and as a Christian to witness it. They lived the truth of the resurrection already here on earth. It shined through them even in their darkest hours. It was truly a proof of Jesus' victory. This is what is unique about Christianity. As Christians united to Jesus in the grace of baptism, we no longer have anything to fear, not even death itself. Christ has won the victory in us.